Hey everyone, it's blog time, and today we're taking sounds off this, which is very old and dirty. It needs a good clean up. I'll do that in another video maybe. It's a PSS-50 from Yamaha. 80s keyboard, kid's toy essentially, but it's got some really cool kind of 4-bit or 8-bit PCM sampled drums, and we're going to take those. I'm actually doing a whole load of sampling from early 80s keyboards and drum machines for this particular project, but I'm just going to show you how I take the drum samples off the PSS-50 and stick them into Kontakt. Now I'm using Mixbus. You can use any DAW you like. I'm using Kontakt. You can use any sampler you like. Let's go and see how it works. Hey everyone, so we're over in Mixbus. If you don't know why I use Mixbus, check out mixbundles.com for more info on that. Link in the description. You can do this on any DAW really, so no worries if you have a different one. Now, what I want to do is I've got some projects coming up that require some kind of 80s cheesy, hard-hitting drum samples, and one of the things I decided to do was take some really cheap Yamaha keyboards from the 80s, which I absolutely love, that have amazing sounds. I mean, if you only ever used the old sort of consumer Yamaha keyboards with the internal sound, the internal speaker, then you're really missing out, because some of these keyboards sound amazing when they're actually plugged into a proper system. So I grew up on the Yamaha PSS-50. I've got a PSS-50 at the moment and a DD10, and some other Yamaha stuff as well. But I wanted to kind of capture some of these sounds to use them in an upcoming project. So what do? Well, I've got the PSS-50 and just recorded a few bits. So let's have a listen to the sort of thing you can get out of the PSS-50. Okay, that kind of general. As you can hear, I'm just using these to sort of grab some samples. So I'm playing a C in each octave, essentially. Now, they might sound a bit basic, but once you start adding some effects to them, you start to get quite a nice sound. Now I've sampled some of the loops. And you can do all sorts of things with EQ and such like. But I want to actually create my own loops. So I should say loops, my own beats. So I want drum samples from this PSS-50. So I've gone as slow as possible and played the simplest beat. So I've really dropped the tempo down. And that's the basics of the beat. Now, there are 4 sounds as far as I can tell on the PSS-50. There is a kick drum, a snare drum, a hi-hat closed, and some kind of cymbal like a crash cymbal or a ride cymbal. It's pretty much the same thing in the case of the PSS-50. So really simple sound set for us to work with. Now, what I've done is, as I say, I've turned the tempo as slow as possible and just played the simplest beat back I can find. And I've just taken a bar of that here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to split the samples. Now you can do this with Rhythm Ferret or Beat Detective or whatever system you use. But I'm just going to do these by hand just to get the shortest sample that I can. So I split it. Sounds okay. Try and get rid of some of that noise.
Okay, cool. Let's just check that it doesn't sound strange at the end. Yeah, that sounds fine. And there's my hats. I could go into sort of optimizing these before I start chopping them up and changing the amplitudes and so on, but I think I'm fine with it as it is. This is the maximum volume I could actually get it into the computer at, really. Not a very good output on those systems. Okay, cool. There's my hi-hat sample. And let's go for the snare sample. Go right in. See where it starts to go from the 0 point. That's it. Okay. Oh, where are we? There we are. Right. So let's see what we've got. Okay. So those three samples sound fine. Kick, snare and hi-hat. Kick, snare and hi-hat. Now, let's see if we can find that cymbal. I know it was a difficult one to find. Haha, there's one on its own. This only exists in certain beats. Now, if I had a keyboard that could play back individual sounds that I wanted to sample, as with some of the other machines that I've been sampling, then I could just send in a MIDI signal or play a key, but with this one it's prepackaged patterns only, predefined beats only, so this is why we're having to chop it up. Now the sounds should be the same whatever tempo you're playing at, so therefore if you can really drop the tempo you should be able to separate out these sounds a little bit more. Okay. So, let's see what we've got. Let's take this and find where that was. Where was it? Here? There it was. I'm just copying everything to the start. You'll notice in Mixbus you get an automatic crossfade on everything to begin with. That's fine. Cool. Maybe I want that a bit longer. Yeah. And try and cut out as much of that hum as possible, because the sample is actually only a short sample. So, cool. There we go. Right, let's rename these. PSS-50. Kick. PSS-50. Snare. PSS-50. Hat. PSS-50. I'm going to call it ride because I think it's a ride. Cool. Now we can export in a number of different manners, but I'm just going to do this a real simple way. Let's go into here. Now I've got a set of Yamaha samples, export. Let's create a new folder. PSS-50. Drums. Okay, so let's export this as 24-bit, session rate, that's fine. And we can do these as a batch export. There's only 4 of them, so I'll do them like this. Export. Okay, cool. So now we have our 4 samples. Now, as I said, you can sort of normalize these before, but I wanted to keep these the same. And to be honest, there was so much background noise. I think I'm going to come back to these and try and edit that out with RX or something like that, and then re-export these. So I'm just going to do these for the sake of showing you guys what's going on. So let's mute this track now, and unmute my Kontakt. So I've already been working on another instrument, which is the DD10 green kit. Let's get rid of the delay here. I'll leave a little bit of reverb in, just to make it listenable for us. Okay, so that's the that's my green kit. Now let's mute that up and create a new instrument. So what we're going to do, let's call it, remember in Mixbus, if you want to use the full keyboard, you've got to click this keyboard option at the top. Let's call this PSS-50. Now, I don't know about the legality of sampling drum samples off instruments, but I figure it's probably okay because I'm using these for my project and I have the original, so I guess that's okay. So obviously don't do this and start selling or sharing them, you know, if you just sample them for your own purposes. And it's kind of cool to have your own samples that nobody else has, because, you know, it gives your stuff that extra flavour. So let's say PSS-50 drums. I'm typing with my left hand here. Sorry. Okay, so we simply go into here. Looks like I've duplicated that one actually. PSS-50 drums. So let's delete everything else. So we've got a clean starting palette. We may as well give it an icon. What icon shall we give it? Something like that. There we go. Looks a bit more electronic drummy, doesn't it? So let's navigate and find the folder. So if I go into my Macintosh HD, documents actually, I've got my all my projects here in a Mixbus projects folder, and let's find the Yamaha samples. Export PSS-50. Now, in this bottom window, we have the samples. So all I'm going to do is grab the kick and pull it out to C1. I'm going to grab the snare and pull it out to D1. I'm going to grab the hat and pull it out to B flat. And I'm going to grab the ride and pull it out to C sharp. Now these are not necessarily general MIDI positions. I think these might differ slightly, but I've got other stuff that I want to put in here, so that's why they are in those positions. So you'll notice that we need to go in here and make sure we have these set to one shot. So I simply go and activate the loop and click one shot. And then it makes sure it plays it as a one shot sample. Same with each one. There's a batch way of doing this, but I'll go into that in another video. Cool. So now they are all set as one shots. I'm going to hide my wave editor. Now, one thing that you'll notice that happens here is I can change the velocities of these, which is, I don't think, something I could have done even if I'd have been playing them back on the keyboard, because I'm fairly sure that that keyboard doesn't have, the PSS-50, which is essentially a toy, doesn't have velocity sensitivity. So let's have a listen and see what we've got. Why is this not playing back? It's not playing back because we're on A2. Okay, cool. So let's grab this. Okay, so we've inherited an artifact from the previous setup here, which I was just checking, yeah, it seems that because I've got groups set up, I've got one set up with a limited amount of voices, so you can hear that snare is being choked. Can you hear it? Okay, so let's go in and make sure that we don't have a limit on those voices. This is how it should have started as default. Okay, so you get the general idea of how this kind of stuff can start to really, you know, make a difference in terms of flexibility rather than using it directly off a keyboard. You can change tempo. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that gave you an insight into how you might go about working with samples from an old school keyboard in Kontakt. Catch you later, guys.